Hello and welcome to the SmartyPlants Podcast. My name is Judi Bushala and I am here today talking with Chef AJ. She's our first celebrity interview and I was really excited that she was gracious enough to talk with me. She is a plant-based chef, a culinary instructor, and a public speaker, and a former comedian. I have been listening to her since early on in my plant-based journey. I found her, I think it was her YouTube channel, and just started listening because she has this great energy. It kind of just sucks you in. And I remember she was talking about calorie density. And for the first time, I really got it. She described it so well. And it was like this light bulb moment for me. It was like, aha, I finally got it. She's the author of the book Unprocessed: How to Achieve Vibrant Health in Your Ideal Weight, which chronicles her journey from an obese junk food vegan to learning how to create foods that nourish and heal the body. She's also the author of the book, The Secrets to Ultimate Weight Loss, a revolutionary approach to conquer cravings, overcome food addiction, and lose weight without going hungry. And she's co-author of the book, Own Your Health: How to Live Long and Avoid Chronic Disease. She was also the host of the television series Healthy Living with Chef AJ, which airs on Foody TV. And she's the creator of the Ultimate Weight Loss Program, which has helped hundreds of people achieve the health and body they deserve. And she's proud to say that her IQ is higher than her cholesterol. So in this episode, she tells us how she became vegan for ethical reasons at age 17, which was about 44 years ago, but she struggled with obesity for decades, with food addictions to processed foods and refined sugar, Coke Slurpees, until she found Dr. McDougall and shifted her diet towards complex carbs and a whole food plant-based diet. She's an expert in food addiction. So this episode is a must if you struggle with food addiction. She tells us how sugar, salt, flour, and alcohol are all addictive. How do you know if you have a problem? Chef AJ reads 10 questions from her book that you can ask yourself. Am I addicted? We dive deep into alcohol, and she had me questioning my own wine consumption. Alcohol is not only addictive, but it's toxic, and it's kind of a slippery slope for a lot of people. Same thing with sugar. We discuss how Chef AJ believes in abstinence for herself. So she's not a big believer in moderation. It's all or nothing for some people. She busts the myth that carbs make you fat. It's really the company that they keep: butter, bacon bits, cheese. That's what makes them bad for us, not the complex carb. What's the most slimming food you can eat? Potatoes. Can you believe that? And we get a sneak peek into what she eats in a typical day. I'm so grateful to her for coming on our podcast and talking with me. It's a fun one, and I hope you enjoy it as much as I did. Let's get into it. So nice to see you. Nice to meet you too.
Where do you live?
I wanted to tell you, I live in Chicago, and you're from Chicago.
Where I was born.
I know.
North side? What part?
Yeah, I was wondering. Well, actually, I live in Evanston now.
I know Evanston.
You know Evanston?
Yeah, I was 11 when I left, but that was called the North Side.
Oh, yep. Right.
Wow. I wonder what it's like now.
Oh, I love it here. It's so nice. Yeah, so I grew up in the west suburbs, like LaGrange countryside area. Okay. But, you know, I'm Chicago. It's like I lived in the city all through my 20s. It's my city, you know. And then after I got married, I'm divorced now. But when I got married, had a baby, moved to Evanston because my daughter's father, his whole family was from here. And I'm like, I want something new. I love Evanston. So yeah. And so now, yeah, I raised my daughter here and loving it. I love this. I'm so happy to have raised her here because she's loved Chicago too.
That's so interesting. Once you get bitten by California, it's hard to think about moving anywhere else.
My gosh. Yeah. The weather and just the beauty and the mountains and the ocean. Oh,
you know, I can't imagine going back to anywhere that snows, I got to tell you.
And Chicago is, yeah, it's cold. No. How long have you been in LA?
Well, I'm not in LA. I moved to the desert about 3 years ago, but I've been in almost, let's see, I was 11 when I left Chicago. That was 1971. So then the next 40 years, I'm bad at math.
Wow.
11 to 59 in LA, and then the last 3 years in the desert.
Wow. Okay. So you grew up in LA too. You were a child there. Oh, I thought you moved there as an adult. Okay.
No. My family went, but I'm so glad because I don't do well with humidity or cold. The desert seems to be perfect for my body composition.
It's been so humid here lately, and it's odd for Chicago. Like July 4th hits and it gets so hot and humid. It's like, we don't know what to do with that. And our air went out. So we were like,
that's
oh my gosh, this is rough.
That's gotta be rough.
Yeah, I love California though. I went there for work like every year, and I just, I know. I think I may move there when our kids are gone. It's like, I think we're going.
What kind of work did you do that took you to California?
So I'm a TV editor. So I worked for Oprah for like 14 years. It's part of my story. Yeah. So at Harpo, we had Kathy Freston come in.
Right.
And I wasn't vegan at all. I was not on my radar. I'm Italian. I ate meat my whole life. I was the cook in the family. And we did this vegan challenge. And so it was on my radar, but I was kind of like, oh, this is fun. It's going to be a challenge. And I did it, learned a bunch of stuff, but didn't, I went right back to eating meat. I did it for a week. I was like, that was fun. That's over. And then I had like a slow day at work, and I watched Forks Over Knives, like so many of us. And I was just like, wow. Like now I'm in my 40s. I didn't really I cared about my health. I wasn't focused on it before that. Getting into my 40s, I started thinking about it. I have a child now. And, I watched that documentary and I was like, I can actually prevent, I didn't have a weight problem. I didn't have any issues, but I watched my whole family, heart attacks. My own dad dropped out of a heart attack in 2005, so traumatic and shocking. 3 uncles, open heart surgery, diabetes, I was like, wait a minute. I eat the same foods as them. I get it now. Like the genes aren't everything. So I just stopped. And I was one of these, like, am I really doing it? It made me super nervous and scared. I was like, wait, what? My whole family was like, what are we going to eat for holidays now? What are you doing? This is so dramatic. It's just all those emotions you go through. So I lived all that. I just dove into it, learned, watched every documentary, read every book. I found you. I've been following you for years. I love your videos. You taught me all about calorie density, and I was like, another light bulb moment.
Well, that's like so important. And that's why, with things like Weight Watchers, they just don't understand a calorie density.
Yes. Yeah.
You don't have to have, oil, but see, they want to be able to they want their cake and they want to eat it too,
That's what they want. And I don't understand like this whole, like, to me, it's super frustrating to count the points. And I don't really get how it works, so that I never really learned, but I know it's about like watching this and counting that. And whoa, that's a lot of mental, like, acrobats.
Can you imagine a gazelle on the African savannah having to do that and decide if they should have an extra blade of grass? It's ridiculous. When you eat the right food, there's no weighing or measuring or counting.
Right. Exactly. That's what I loved. And I learned that from you. I saw the diagram and the charts, and it just was a light bulb moment, because it's like, I could fill up on all this nutrient dense food, not calorie dense. And when I saw that little bit of oil, it just like clicked for me. I got it. But until I started thinking about the oil, that was the last to go for me. So I had a little bit of a process. Like I dropped meat a few years later, read the books, watched the documentaries, and then I gave up dairy. And then, fish and seafood was the last for me. And oil, I won't say I'm 100% no oil, but I don't cook with it.
It's a waste of money. You don't need it. That's the thing.
Right. You don't need it. It's just, and I found that if we don't ask for low oil, sometimes it's hard to get no oil, and I'll say very low oil, please, after I say no meat and dairy in restaurants. And if I forget, or, sometimes we pass dishes we're sharing, it's saturated in oil. That's not edible anymore to me.
So gross. But until people stop it, they don't get their taste buds clean enough to know.
Let's talk about your story, your upbringing, how you got into this lifestyle, or how you ate as a child, all that good stuff.
I ate a lot of boxed cereal as a child.
So did I.
I really loved the toys. I really think I loved the toys, and that's why I always wanted the cereal. But they were all the sugar cereal. We didn't just have like one kind. We had sugar frosted flakes and sugar smacks and Cocoa Puffs and Fruity Pebbles.
I love Fruity Pebbles.
I love that it turned the milk, pretty.
Oh, pinker, yeah. Apple Jacks.
A Captain Crunch with Crunch Berries, and then in the 70s, it became the granola, the Quaker 100% natural, which is basically like sugar and oil and that. Yeah, I ate a lot of refined carbohydrates, really, sugar and flour and caffeine, a lot of coffee. Don't ask me why a kid was drinking coffee, but I was. And so that was my diet. I wasn't eating fruits and vegetables. And it wasn't even that I was eating that many animal products. I didn't care for them. I kind of thought it was gross that we
Because I
ate.
read you were kosher, and so you
Yeah,
got knocked out all of that stuff.
that was a
Right.
good thing. It's
Yeah.
they say that we develop taste preferences for what we habitually eat. And if you don't habitually eat animal products, you don't really crave them the way other people do. So, being kosher was great because we never had pepperoni pizza or a cheeseburger or a bacon cheeseburger or a BLT.
Wow.
We had a few
Right.
cuts of meat and chicken and not
Right.
that much, and even then there was only certain parts of the animal you can eat. So it wasn't like I was exposed to all this palette of different, you know,
Right.
delicious, I'm in air quotes, animal products. We couldn't have lobster, crabs, clam. So we had some beef and some chicken. And even then I had a problem eating it unless my mom could disguise it in something like a soup or a stew. If it had a bone, I mean, like ribs. freak me
Yeah,
out.
that was my daughter.
Yeah.
Yes, she still won't. Well, she doesn't eat meat anymore on her own. But yeah, all those years I was trying to give her those things. I was cutting up ham, and if it looked like an animal, she said, "Mom, it has no, that's a bone." And
Well, good for her. I
yeah,
think it's instinctively know that it's creepy and it's wrong.
yeah,
Even if we were in a situation where we were starving and there was nothing else to eat, and then I could see, but if there's other things to eat, why would you kill an innocent animal and eat it? It's just creepy. We call them, chicken wings. Why would you? It's just, ugh.
oh, yes,
I mean, I could eat a can of tuna because it didn't look like anything, but I would
yeah,
eat fish. I will tell you, because fish smelled as bad as it looked, dead as it was
yes,
alive. I mean, not that fish look bad when they were alive, but
right.
in restaurants they would serve fish. I mean, they'd leave the head on. You could see.
I know that's the whole fish, right?
Never eat that. It was like that would just creep
So
me.
you never have eaten fish then?
Well, I mean, I had tuna fish.
Tuna fish, yeah, in the can, right?
But yeah, I mean, to me that, and just like the bones were in there, and like you had to pick them out, and it was just I wouldn't eat it. Ugh. No.
Wow. Yeah. So my epiphany with fish was we took a trip for our 50th to Maui, and we were swimming around. Like my favorite thing to do is snorkel. And I was looking at these beautiful fish. I loved it. And then, I wasn't eating meat or dairy, but we went back, and like in the time that I took to like freshen up and doll myself up and go to dinner, the fish were like caught and scaled and put in front of me. And I'm looking at all these people like having fun. They're all tan and laughing. And I was like, weren't we just swimming with these beautiful things 5 minutes ago? And then I learned everything about all the bad things that come with eating fish. And I was like, no, I don't know why it took me so long, but I'm not going to judge myself. That was my path.
And I don't know, because people that become vegan for ethical reasons, like I did at the age of 17, 44 years ago, generally stay vegan.
Yes.
It's popular now to become vegan for other reasons, which are great reasons for your health and for the environment. But those people aren't always 100% vegan because they don't have that ethical piece in there. But I wonder why think it's okay to eat animals. I mean, I know some people think they would die without the protein or whatever, but
Yep.
it's bizarre to me that it's even legal to kill something just to eat it, But
It is. I know. And the more I've eaten this way, it's like I just can't imagine ever. I know I'll never eat meat again. I know I'll never, because of that. And I don't like making statements like I'll never, but when I talk about this, I want people to understand all of that stuff, because when you have that why, it's not just about me anymore. As soon as I learned about the animals, which I told you Forks Over Knives changed it for my health, I was like, wow, I could prevent all this. Then when I dove into who Colleen Patrick Gaudreau is for the animals, of course. So I dove into her podcast. I listened from day one, 2012, whenever it was, all through. And I was horrified. And I mean, she's such a strong voice in my ear, like I just couldn't get enough. And I was learning. And I was just like, it's unbelievable what's happening, And so once you learn all that, then it's not just about me, and now it's more about the animals. It's more about the animals, and it's just heartbreaking and unbelievable at what we are doing. That's the part that gets me upset. If I think about it too much, I feel powerless. This is what I'm doing to help, a
lot of people don't want to know. Some people really just don't care, but a lot of people just don't want to know.
Right. I did have a boss once where I was standing at the water cooler talking about this, and he walked up and he heard me, whatever I was saying about it. And he was like, "Oh, I don't want to hear this." He's like, "Cause I want to go back and enjoy my cheeseburger." And it's like, okay, so you do know, you just don't want to know.
Well, the thing is now with all the vegan analogs, you can get just as delicious of a taste. If that's really what it's about is taste, there's really no excuse anymore to go vegan because that I've never had any of those things, but I'm told that they taste just like the real thing, Beyond Meat or Beyond Burger or Impossible. So you can still have a cheeseburger, just don't have it from an animal.
So you don't eat any of that stuff? No.
Hell
no.
I don't. And not judging the people that do, but where I came from, I was obese, and junk food does not make a slender figure for somebody that's obese. So I don't eat any processed food. And I'm sorry if I called it junk food. Maybe it's not junk food.
No, I call it that. I know. I know it is.
It's not health food necessarily. There's some people that can eat it and get away with it in terms of not being overweight or having compromised health. But that's not me. And so these things weren't created 40 years ago when I became vegan. So they weren't an option. So luckily, just like all the non-kosher meats, I never got to really develop a taste for them because I never had them.
Wow, that's so great. So yeah, so I noticed that with myself. So you never eat refined sugar because
never.
Actually,
not for I think it's been July 6, 2003. No.
Oh, whoa. Yeah. Okay. So I want to talk about food addiction with you, and I want to learn from you, and I want our listeners to learn a ton from you. But I just know for myself, I have it every once in a while, but I know that as soon as I have it, I'm sucked down that path. And I just know that's what it is. It's like, I'm not sure why it's happening, but I'm not a big sweet person. I'm more of a salty person. But when I have whatever it is, like if I put some agave in my coffee, then I want to do that every day. It's like I notice more and more. If I have a piece of dark chocolate, we notice every night, we're like, where's the chocolate? It's just like, wow, it's a real thing with me. And I don't even see myself as a sugar person.
People vary in how susceptible they are, how vulnerable they are to the effects of these addictive foods, because they were very rare in nature. I mean, the things you're talking about don't even exist in nature, So if you say, wow, every time I eat, an apple, I can't stop eating them. No, that's not going to happen, because when the sugar is bound to the whole food with the fiber and the vitamins and minerals and phytochemicals, antioxidants, micronutrients, and water, you don't have that same response as when you strip it away from the whole food. And so sugar's addictive, oil's addictive, salt, flour, alcohol, chocolate, probably for most people, caffeine. Right. They don't really exist in nature, not in any concentrated forms, but people's brains vary in how triggered they get by them. So there's people that could eat them a little or a lot and, take it or leave it. But like you say, that once you start letting it in the door, it's like you start looking for it, right?
Right. And I know that dopamine, we have a dopamine release when we eat those things. Absolutely. So we just get that rush. And you don't really realize that's what's going on in your brain. It's so interesting.
It was rare when we evolved, like in the Stone Age, when we found something that was that, conducive to our survival, these concentrated calories. That's what dopamine is. It's so our brain will remember. But the thing is we're not in a place anymore where we need to find calories to survive. Most people on this planet today, or at least in the United States, get more than enough calories, probably too many, but the brain is still the same. And so, like you said, all eating anything stimulates the production of dopamine in the brain, this very powerful neurotransmitter, this pleasurable experience. But the more concentrated the calories, the more dopamine is released. And so when we have things that are concentrated, like sugar or oil or things like that, our brain gets really excited, because back in the day, that meant, we're going to survive. We have enough calories. That's what happens. And some people, like I say, are just more vulnerable. Some people, just like with alcohol, there are people that can drink socially or occasionally and not be alcoholics, but there's people like that old saying, one drink, one drunk. The most important thing is you have to know yourself. And so some people can have these things and other people can't. You just have to know where you fit on this continuum.
Right. And I actually see that in myself with alcohol, because I typically don't drink for days and months. And then as soon as I do, I feel like I get that in my system. And then the next night I'm like, a glass of wine would sound good. I notice it with alcohol too. And it's just like that same kind of thing. It's like, I can forget about it for months. As soon as I have it,
was designed to do that to you. And unfortunately, you're not somebody that, you sound like you're mildly susceptible, but remember, people that are like truly addicted, it's like, once they get that taste ignited, they can't stop. And so that's why you have to just know yourself. And it's not that these things are necessarily horrible, but they may be not good for you.
Right. And I am the type of person where I like noticing those things about myself. I like noticing that, and I like learning about it, just like I did with all this, with the whole food, plant-based eating. And I'm still learning, but I love the more that I learn, I feel like the better I do, or the more knowledge I have then about my own body. And, I can help other people and share it.
Problem is for me, like and again, like for me, the equivalent of like the sugar and the alcohol would be like if I make like a richer dessert that's where I'm combining things. They're whole natural foods, but maybe combining some oats with some dates, and it's
Right.
like I know what you mean. Like when I get them, it's like, wow, this is really good. And then I want it all the time. So that's why I don't do it very often. Maybe I'll make one of my healthy carrot cakes for my husband's birthday, but when it's in the fridge, all I think about is when am I going to get to eat it again? So it's just, for me, abstinence is easier than moderation. I don't think most people in our country do moderation very well anyway.
I don't either.
But for me, abstinence is just black and white is so much easier than gray. So it's just easier for me. I don't have to make decisions to not have it, or like, then, well, should I have it? And how much should I have? And how often should I have it? I don't have time for that chatter in my brain. It's sort of like,
Right.
think about people like Steve Jobs and maybe even Albert Einstein. I believe they wore the same thing to work every day because they were so brilliant.
Yeah.
Their brain to make other important decisions other than standing in their closet.
Right.
Like many people do, like, what am I going to wear? And so, when I think back when I was a respiratory therapist, it was so easy because I never had to, I had to be at work at 6:30 in the morning. I never had to think about what I was going to wear because we wore scrubs. It was like the
Right.
same,
I love that. Yes.
same thing every day. And when I was a pastry chef, it was the same thing. It was a chef coat. I didn't have to use any of the real estate in my brain to make a decision. And it's the same thing with food. It's just, you don't ever have to decide to not eat something that's not in your house in the first place. So I just don't have it in the house, and then don't have to struggle and do that dance with like, oh, can I have a little? Can I have a lot? How often can I have it? Oh, that tasted really good. Maybe I'll have some more.
Right. It's like that mental energy.
Oh, it's terrible. Oh, you lose the power to make a decision once you make the decision to have that first bite or sip or snort or puff or whatever.
Right. Food addiction is real. It's just as
It
real
is.
as drugs.
People don't believe it. It is. It really is. It's just a bad name for a disease because a lot of the people that don't believe it, certain doctors say, well, they argue, well, you can't be addicted to food or eating. You have to eat to survive. And that's true. And that's why I think they need to come up with another name with the word food out of it. And a couple of doctors have said dopamine deficiency disorder or something. And also because, it's harder to quantify food addiction. Like somebody that's hypertensive, there's a certain number that doctors are looking for. I believe it's anything over 120 over 80. But like, you can't do a blood test or a scan to say, oh yeah, you've got food addiction. It's largely self-reported.
So how do you know? Like, let's just say, like, if someone thinks, oh, I might be, how can you tell if you are addicted to a certain food? Yeah, you're fucked.
I have a little quiz that I wrote in my book. It's funny. I think most people know, but here, so I wrote a little quiz in my book, and this is how I tell people. So I go, how do you know if you have a problem with a particular type of food or drink? Please ask yourself these 10 questions and answer as honestly as possible. Number 1, do you absolutely have to consume it daily, or perhaps even several times a day? For some people, that is coffee, that is alcohol. Number 2, do you feel bad if you're unable to get your fix? Boy, have you ever seen anybody that is a coffee drinker, what happens when they don't get their morning coffee?
Yes.
Oh my God. Or people are nightly alcohol drinkers when they don't get their drink.
They get crabby around 5. I've seen that. Yes.
Number 3, do you think about it often and can't wait until you're able to consume it again, even if you just had it? Yeah. That's kind of what you were discussing. Well, I just had a square dark. Am I going to have another square? That was good. Number 4, is it difficult for you to moderate your use of it? And that is a key one, I think, because my husband could have a glass of champagne at a wedding and never think about alcohol again. He doesn't have difficulty moderating, but I think most people do. And when you think about the percentage of people that are overweight or obese, they're clearly not able to moderate their use of these kind of foods, right?
Right.
Number 5, do you often consume more of it than you intended to? So that's like you with the wine and the chocolate. Oh, I think another glass might be even better.
Both.
Number 6, do you often feel shame or regret after consuming it? That really is a key right there, Judi, because like, sometimes I don't know what overeat means because my weight's been stable for 10 years, but sometimes maybe I eat past full. Oh, I had another sweet potato, but I don't sit there and like, oh my God, I feel so terrible. It's like,
We're eating a sweet potato, right?
It's just like, I'm a little bit too full, that, a little bit uncomfortable, but it's not the same as like when you eat the whole cake or the whole bottle of wine by yourself, right? I don't feel Feeling shame and regret is often a clue. Number 7, do you have physical or emotional withdrawal symptoms when you try to abstain from it? So that's, in the case of coffee, there's physical withdrawal symptoms when people don't have it. I think same thing with alcohol for people, but a lot of it's emotional too. When you can't get it, people get, like you say, cranky, crabby.
Right. They do.
Crying, yelling. I've seen that happen, right? I remember when I was addicted to Coke Slurpees, sugar and caffeine, and I would go to 7-Eleven and the machine was broken. I would flip out at the cashier.
Coke Slurpees, I remember those. 7-Eleven, yep.
So that's definitely a withdrawal symptom. Number 8, is it difficult for you to get through even a single day without consuming the substance? There's people that cannot get through a single day without caffeine, alcohol, chocolate, whatever it is. You just fill in the blank, cheese for some people, sugar, bread. Number 9, does abstaining from it result in any physical or emotional discomfort? So that's how you really know if you're an addict, is just think about it and see how you feel emotionally, physically. I think you'll have your answer. And number 10, does the mere thought of abstaining from it bring on strong emotions such as anxiety, sadness, anger, or grief? So if, depending on how many questions you answered, these are clues that maybe you have a problem with one or more substances. People don't like the word addict because I think, think of drug addict, heroin. Yeah. So maybe there's a better word for it, but that's really what it is. It is an addiction. It's not your fault. It's these products were designed to be addictive, and people are susceptible. They vary in the susceptibility. So you don't have to feel shame that you're one of these people that are hardwired to, to like them more than somebody else. But it's, and the thing is, it's really hard it's a hard sell addiction because the whole world it's like a mass addiction,
Yeah.
People think of it as an addiction because everybody's doing it.
I was just going to say that's so social. That's the hard part. And the thing with alcohol is like, they make it so fun and it's so social. And what am I going to do if I don't drink alcohol? This is what you do everywhere now at like kids' birthday parties, book clubs, everything, all alcohol. And food, it's like, well, we have to eat, and so it's like, it's not like you can stop eating. I know I like the abstinence from, the refined foods and all of that stuff, but like, it's just so tempting. Everywhere you go, I'm pumping gas and I'm seeing popcorn shrimp across the table, pizzas being pulled apart, French fries. It's like sodas everywhere. We're bombarded with it.
That was the problem in the Garden of Eden, temptation, right? Mae West used to say temptation. And you're right. We do have to eat, but we don't have to drink alcohol. And I can't believe how few doctors that know better just really won't strongly come out against it. I very rarely go on Instagram. Somebody sent me something from a doctor who I don't know, but I've heard of him, Dr. Daniel Amen. And he came out against alcohol saying, how it basically destroys your brain. He goes, something goes bad with your heart, he says, or liver, we can get you another one of those. Can't get you another brain.
Wow.
Organization says no amount of alcohol is safe. It's linked to every cancer. And, I don't get it. The people there are people that smoke, but I don't think anybody that smokes would actually come out and say, this is very good for me.
No.
But yet they do that with alcohol because of a small amount of whatever that compound is in red wine that's supposed to be good for your heart, which you can get from grapes. But people are in such denial that alcohol is a highly addictive drug. I mean, so much life is lost by alcohol through, not only just drunk driving, but in terms of it's linked to every single cancer. And if you wouldn't smoke cigarettes because it's linked to cancers, why are you taking a drug that in any dose that is carcinogenic? So I'm just beyond me. People can drink if they want, but to like even remotely think it's healthy. And so many, and it's kind of like embarrassed that so many of the people in the plant-based world that are doctors and dietitians drink and they basically, it's not even like secret. It's like, this is great. And it's like, really? I mean, like,
oh, wow. You noticed that? Yeah.
It's just such a turnoff to me. Not the doctors that I really respect, but lot of them that you see, and then, they just are promoting wine and alcohol. And it's like, really,
I've seen that. Yeah.
when it comes to like other things like meat and dairy, you really take this hard stand, but then you're telling people it's okay to have this carcinogen every day.
Well, that's how I am right now with alcohol, because I feel like, yeah, here I am promoting this. I'm doing all these things, like barely any oil, like every day for years now, and I'm promoting it. And then I will go out for girls' night and have wine, and it's just like, what am I doing?
Well, that just shows you what a pull it has, and keep yourself up for not being perfect. I think it's when you're drinking it than when you're actually promoting it. You know what I'm saying? I mean, I don't think you're taking a stand telling everybody to drink or that drinking's healthy. I think listen, I eat rice. I know that it's not as healthy as brown, and some people would say it's not healthy at all. It's too processed. But I'm not going out like taking a platform, telling everybody, they have to eat white rice. It's really, I know that I don't think it's really compromising my health the way that alcohol would. But what I'm saying is I'm not promoting on a big platform telling people that they should do it. And it bothers me when doctors and dietitians are telling people, to drink alcohol.
Promoting it. Yeah.
Exactly. That's what I'm saying.
Right. Yeah. No, I hear you. I just like personally for myself, the more I'm doing it now with alcohol, the more I learn, like you just said, all these things. Do I really want to be putting that into my body? That cancer promoting substances, when I do all this stuff for my health and then I blow it with, a Friday night, half a bottle of wine later, I'm like, it gives me a headache. I'm not feeling good anymore. It's like,
depends, like, somebody with a strong family history of breast cancer, might want to think twice about drinking more than, like, I don't know what your genetics and things like that are. Mm-hmm. So, listen, this is tough because people think, this is the thing, people think that it's not possible to enjoy life without these things. And that, say that's not true. And actually, it's kind of sad if you can only enjoy your life with these things, with these hyper palatable foods and alcohol and things like that. But they've never had the experience of how great life can be without drugs. And I think alcohol is a drug, coffee is a drug, in some ways chocolate's a drug, sugar is a drug, but people don't want to hear what I have to say because it's too hard.
It's too hard. They don't want to give it up. I know.
But it's
well, this isn't, I noticed too with my eating just through the years, my friends, they will always make excuses, like, oh, I don't eat that much meat, or I could never give up cheese. It's my one thing. I mean, and then I'll, as much as I kind of push my nut cheeses on them, meaning if they come over, I make them, I share them, they love them, but they're like, well, it's not really cheese. Like they make all these jokes. It's like,
because they're not getting that hit of the casomorphine from the nut cheeses. The nut cheeses are absolutely delicious. They look the same. They taste the same.
No.
It doesn't have that addictive compound, the casomorphine, that is why people like cheese, right? You should share with them some of the stuff from the USDA about how many parts per million of pus is in the cheese, and maybe they'll stop eating cheese.
Well, that's what's so funny, because when they start talking about that, it's almost like they're acting like they know more than I do. And I know so much about the dairy industry. I know all of that. I would never eat that. And cheese I loved the taste before, but I have no desire to have cheese. I think of it as a poison now. That's where I want to look at alcohol, because I know alcohol is a poison.
Like someday, I think people come to these conclusions at different times in their life. You're still pretty young. You're at least 20 years younger than me, and maybe you haven't seen quite as much damage caused by alcohol. Once people that have been killed by drunk drivers, it's just a game. And people say, oh, but I don't do that. Well, I don't know. I don't have anything good to say about alcohol other than it's great if you want to sterilize surgical equipment. I mean, it's wonderful. I mean,
right. It's ethanol. It's a drug.
I mean, I don't understand, that is what alcohol's for. It's toxic to every cell in the body. We use it, it's great, like, to sterilize things, but I don't understand why people are drinking it. And people go, oh, I love the taste of wine. And I'm like, well, here's some non-alcoholic wine. Oh no, that tastes terrible. They just want the drug. It's a great social lubricant. It makes interacting with people easier, and it makes people feel good. But there's other ways in life to feel good too. There's exercise, there's social connection. There's all kinds of ways to feel good without drugs and food. But
and I also learned something, because I've been studying it, that when you're drinking, because it's affecting your brain chemistry. So your brain is like, you're slowing down, you're mellowing out. You think you're feeling good. Your brain's slowing down. So what your brain does is it shoots out all these hormones like adrenaline and cortisol, and it causes you to feel more anxious. And so like, that's why the next day I noticed that I was like, I feel like I have some anxiety here, and then you feel just, you're out of whack. And it's just like, do I really want to be messing with my brain like that? I don't think I do,
No, it's a nightmare for people with anxiety. You're absolutely right.
Yeah.
And the other thing is it's very difficult to lose weight and keep that weight off if you're drinking. Alcohol is 7 calories per gram, which is almost as calorically dense as oils, which are 9 calories a gram. It's almost twice as calorically dense as protein or carbohydrates at 4 calories a gram. And especially for women, it's very hard to lose weight if you're drinking alcohol. Liquid calories in general, but alcohol specifically is a depressant, and it slows your metabolism. And people don't make good food choices when they're.
That's what I was going to say. Then, not to mention that, when you lose your inhibitions and you're just eating poorly. Yeah. It's not a good thing.
But it's also not popular to be against it. So, but you're asking me, it's not like I stand on the
exactly
sign saying don't drink. But if people ask me, my brother is a doctor. And I remember when you're a doctor, you're required to help people. Like if they're injured, I don't know exactly what the law is, but and he was actually hit by a drunk driver, and he was bleeding and messed up, but because he was a doctor, he had to tend to the car of the people that hit him. And it's like, I don't know, sorry, I didn't mean to go down that road, but
that's okay. But there are so many statistics. I've been learning about it, and there's nothing good. I'm
not a fan of marijuana either. I'm not a fan of any drugs personally,
right.
But at least people that smoke pot, they kind of stay home and they don't get behind the wheel,
right?
For the most part,
right.
They're mellow, they're at home. Whereas alcohol, it's like this more social thing where they're out at the bars. That's why I thank God for things like Lyft and Uber, where some people that have drinking problems at least are calling for rides now, which is much better. But life's hard. People want to feel good, and this is one way to do it. But there's other ways.
Right. There's other ways. And I feel like, how you are like abstaining from all that for all these years, it's like, you got it out of your system, you get it off your mind, you forget about it. When I don't drink for a month, I don't think about a glass of wine ever.
People think it's so hard, and it's not. Moderation is much harder than abstinence. And I can't explain it, except for the only people that really are going to understand what I'm talking about are people that maybe they're either in a 12-step or recovery program, or they've chosen abstinence.
Yeah.
That you get from this lifestyle of being abstinent, it's just like, it's not that I think I'm better than anybody, but it's like I'm the best me that I can be, because I know what it was like to be fat, sick, and addicted, and not doing that anymore. You have pride. I have a sense of pride in the lifestyle that I've chosen.
Right. I know. And you do feel good about your choices. And just going back to the vegan for the animals, I feel so good about that. I'm not contributing to that anymore. And that just makes me feel so much better. I mean, also helping the planet in so many ways. But right, for my daughter, like being the best I can be, health wise too, for her. I'm giving it my best shot here, and there's no guarantees. Who knows? You never know what you're going to have to deal with, but I want to give it my best shot,
A lot of people don't realize, in case there's any ethical vegans listening, that most alcohol is not vegan. You can get certain brands, like John Sally has a brand. He's the former NBA basketball player, called Vegan Vine or Barnivore.com, but most alcohol is not even vegan. So
oh my gosh, I didn't know that.
Yeah. Oh my God. It's filtered through the bladder of a sturgeon. I mean, whoever thinks of these things.
What? Oh, see, that's just gross.
so just like a lot of sugar's not vegan because of the animal char, the animal bones. So if somebody's an ethical vegan, those are that you can find alternate ways to have these things. So that's, I always think about, like, because you mentioned you had children. So I'm sure that that when you're pregnant, they advise that you don't have certain substances like alcohol, like tobacco. I'm not sure where they stand on caffeine, but even fish, a lot of pregnant women are warned about. And it's like, I'm thinking, if it's not okay for a fetus or a baby or your dog, then why okay for an adult human? It's toxic at all stages of life. It's just more toxic when you're younger.
Well, when my dad had his first heart attack, so he had a heart attack, and then they right into triple bypass surgery, and then when he was leaving, which that was so traumatic and scary. But then when he was leaving the hospital, all they told him back then was to cut down on his meat, like only have red meat like 3 times a week. And I'm thinking, they're never going to tell him to only eat broccoli 3 times a week. I knew, and I was a kid, but I was like, why are they telling, if it's 3 times, they're telling him to cut down, it's bad. It's a bad thing. Like, oh, that should be a sign,
That's hilarious.
It's just like, no, that's not good. We should know better. And I don't know. I just think the more you learn, the better we do. And I really don't want to be super preachy to my friends, but I don't know. I feel like the more I learn, I like hanging out with like-minded people, because sometimes it just gets frustrating trying to explain it when they don't want to hear it,
Dr. McDougall's been saying for years, people want good news about their bad habits. They don't want bad news about their bad habits.
Yeah, I was recently talking, yesterday, to somebody who asks me about oil, and I'd love to hear what you would say to this, because sometimes I get twisted up and tongue-tied. I know why I don't eat oil now. I am confident in it. And it's just did you ever get into a conversation where they're like, but it started out as a whole food? And I said, I know that. And so you don't eat processed food. Well, I eat minimally processed food. So I describe what I mean by that, like a tortilla, corn pounded down with water into a tortilla, I will eat, there's nothing added to it. He said, but it was an olive. And I'm just like, oh my gosh. So how would you get out of that one where it's like, what would you say to that? I'm just curious.
Somebody says, what's wrong with it? I would ask them, well, what's right with it? So tell me what's good about olive oil. And so maybe they'll say, I don't know what the person would say, but maybe because I can't think of anything good about it. Well, what I get a lot is, well, we need fat. And I'm like, yeah, but if you can get fat from eating anything in its whole food form. So if you really think there's something good about olive oil, wouldn't it also be in the olive that it came from? And they go, yeah. Well, wouldn't it be better to eat food in its whole food form, where the water and fiber was intact, and the vitamins and minerals, phytochemicals, and antioxidants? Also, again, caloric density. Olives are, I don't know, like 600 calories per pound. Olive oil, you strip the fiber and the water, is 4,000 calories a pound.
4,000 calories a pound.
Like the most calorically dense product. I don't even want to say food, because I don't think of it as food.
I don't either.
Naturally, we're not oil eaters. I mean, think about it. If we're meant to eat something, it would have been in nature. We wouldn't have to process it. And I don't know anybody that can make olive oil out of olives, or corn oil out of corn. It takes 16 ears of corn to make 1 tablespoon of corn oil. Who could eat that much corn? I don't know.
Whoa.
So again, if you're familiar with the work of Dr. Caldwell B. Esselstyn Jr., who wrote Prevent and Reverse Heart Disease, says it injures our endothelial cells. This is the life jacket of our circulatory system. And again, more than 3/4 of Americans are overweight or obese. Why are we giving them something that's 4,000 calories a pound? It makes no sense. But the problem is, like we talked about earlier, the more calorically concentrated the calories, the more dopamine is released. So people like high fat, high calorie foods because it makes them feel good. But truthfully, when you use oil, it coats the taste buds of your tongue, and then you really can't taste your food. So in order to do that, you got to add salt, and a lot of it. So when you get rid of oil, it's a lot easier to get rid of the salt, or decrease the salt.
Wow. Okay. Yeah, because that's what they say then. Food tastes better, but it's just their palate that they are used to that.
It's better. It means I'm getting like better high from it, more dopamine from it. That's what they mean by it tastes better.
Okay. So I didn't think of the dopamine with the oil for my conversation yesterday.
Yep.
I know that about sugar and alcohol, but I didn't realize that about oil. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
It's sludge. I mean, if people like oil so much, why aren't people drinking it by itself? If it's that good, if it's that nutritious. If you want to eat fat, eat nuts, eat seeds, eat avocado, preferably raw and unsalted, but nobody needs oil. Cars need oil, not people.
I love it. Yes, you're right.
Hey everyone, it's Phil. I just wanted to take a quick break in the discussion and remind everyone that SmartyPlants has 2 great meal plans to offer. The first is our 28-day Kickstart, which is for people who are curious about a plant-based diet but really don't know where to begin. It's also for people who have health or weight issues and need some help getting healthy. Our program includes 28 days of carefully planned recipes that are simple to make and super tasty. Things like Caesar salad, nachos, and pizza. It also includes meal prep instructions, a grocery list, and daily lessons on things like stocking a plant-based kitchen, weight loss, and navigating social situations. You'll come out of it a plant-based rock star. If this sounds good to you, you should become one of our Kickstarters. Our second program is our weekly meal plan. This is for people who have the plant-based basics down, but they want tested and trusted delicious recipes each week. Our members receive at least 3 new recipes each week created by our very own SmartyPlants team. Things like pesto lasagna, crunch wraps, French onion, grilled cheese, sauces, mains, sides, desserts, and more. Our meal planners have access to our full recipe database. Our meal planner, where they can customize their meals each week and create a grocery list, meal prep instructions, and great support, of course. Stop downloading random recipes from strangers on the internet and check out our tested and delicious recipes. If this sounds good to you, let us do the heavy lifting for you and become one of our weekly meal planners. For more info, check out our website, SmartyPlants.org, and use the discount code PODCAST2022. That's PODCAST 2022. You'll receive 50% off our 28-day kickstart or 50% off our weekly meal plan for up to 3 months. Now back to the show.
So just a little bit about your story. So I want to hear like how you went vegan. You weren't raised vegan. I know that. What happened like when you were a child, when you started to gain weight? Do you feel like you were eating the cereals like me and the sugary? You didn't have, the healthiest foods offered to you when you were little. So you just started to gain weight at an early age. I know that.
My mom cooked nutritious meals. I mean, there was, I don't know what was considered nutritious in the 60s, but I don't remember gaining weight. I just always remember being fat because I really don't remember before much the age of 5, and I had already been fat. So my weight was commensurate with my age. It wasn't like I gained and gained and gained, but
right.
However proportionally fat I was my whole life. But by the age of 11, I wasn't yet 5 feet tall and I was 160 pounds, but I managed to pretty much stay that way through most of my life. But thankfully I grew another 6 inches. So, I know my mom made vegetables and, there was a protein and some kind of starch, but it was like, I just wanted the dessert. And the truth is the only way I got the dessert, I had to clean my plate. So I ate more, you know what I mean? That's what I remember, is because I just wanted the dessert. And that was the rule. You got to clean your plate. So I ate all this food that I didn't want. We're having plenty of calories just to get the calories that I really wanted. So
yeah. So I know that I heard you say that both of your parents were overweight, right? Or obese.
My dad was normal weight. My dad he was stocky like he was because he was short. And my mom was morbidly obese. So yeah, and her parents were both obese.
Right. My grandmother was morbidly obese, but see, I didn't realize it at the time. That was just how she was. That was grandma, that was her shape. Like I couldn't even picture her at a healthy weight. And I had a lot of family members that I'm sure they were obese for sure. Maybe even morbidly obese, just big. My grandma had 5 sisters. They were all the same size, but all the health issues and that came along with it and the eating, like we were saying. So growing up, I just ate a lot of, not like the way you ate, but we ate like meatballs and sausage and peppers and, pork ribs and the gravy and everything was cheese. And, that's how we all ate. It was just all that family food. And it was comforting. And I don't know. My brother, who's my partner in SmartyPlants, our business, he feels like it wasn't for him necessarily the worst choices of food, but it was the volume of food he was eating. So he would like that. He would eat like meatballs and plate after plate of pasta. And then if he finished all that, he'd get dessert, like you just said. And he was like, they created this. He's had a weight problem his whole life. He's been plant-based for 3 years and he's still battling the portion control.
Well, that's what's nice about caloric density, because if he really is a volume eater, he can still eat large volumes of food, but he has to keep it to the left of the red line and not eat, processed food and high fat plant foods. He can eat as much salad and fruit and starchy vegetables and beans as he wants. But when you start processing it, when you process a food, you make it calorically rich and more nutrient poor. And, you're taking water out, so it's easier to overeat. But if he likes to eat volumes, boy, he should try, as Dr. Barbara Rolls calls it, volumetrics, or using the caloric density approach.
Actually, when he got started on this, I put him on like this 28-day plan. I told him what to eat, and he just he did lose, like he lost 17 pounds in 30 days, the first month. I told him everything to buy, what to eat. He took out all oils, everything. He's eating Ezekiel bread and he's discovering natural peanut butter and, all these things. And he was loving
dense. That's still calorically dense. Yeah.
Yeah. And he was loving it. And then it was like he kind of plateaued, but he was doing things like that. He's like, well, you told me I could eat whatever I wanted. And I was still kind of learning too at the time about, well, yes, but you can't eat, because I don't eat like that. I wouldn't eat the whole pot of noodles. So I wasn't thinking, like give him free rein and he will just kind of keep eating, and it was like he was eating cashews, a lot of cashew based sauces and things, which I think are delicious and I still eat them, drizzled on a salad, but I wouldn't eat the whole bottle. He'd snack on cashews.
Right. Well, so he obviously, not a good idea. Not if you're struggling with weight. Nuts are healthy, but they're very, very calorically dense. And, for the same amount of calories in a mere 2 ounces of nuts, which would fit in the palm of my hand, you could have like a pound of sweet potato fries. So yeah, you got to be mindful of caloric density if you're trying to lose weight.
Right. And I had a friend who she lost over 100 pounds and she would eat like one of those frozen bags of broccoli. She'll eat a whole bag of broccoli before she starts her day. That's not breakfast. That's before breakfast. Because what is that? She's filling up on broccoli, which is what, 30 calories for the bag?
Calories a pound. That's what I do. I recommend people always start their meals with non-starchy vegetables. And I do also recommend vegetables for breakfast. Good for her.
You do? Oh, awesome.
Yep.
And she's like, if you're not hungry enough to eat a bag of broccoli, you're not hungry.
Well, it sounds like she's read my book because that's exactly.
She probably did.
That's wonderful.
Is that verbatim out of your book? Yeah.
Well, I've been saying that for a long time. If you're not hungry enough to eat vegetables, you're not hungry.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I agree because I test myself sometimes and I'm, waiting for lunch and it's like, oh, it's lunchtime, I can eat. But when you're really hungry, that bag of broccoli is looking really good,
My sentiments exactly.
I love it. Why did you first go vegan? I think you were like 17, I have in my notes.
Well, I was a freshman at the University of Pennsylvania. So my vegan anniversary, if you will, is September 1st, 1977. I wanted to be vegan before. I didn't have the word vegan. I think growing up, I guess it was just vegetarian back then. But I was working at a laboratory at the University of Pennsylvania where I was studying to be a veterinarian. And I joked that instead I became a vegetarian because the vet that I was working for brought me a tank of live salamanders and asked me to cut all their heads off for the animal experimentation. He just needed the lens of the eye. And I was on scholarship and I was afraid to say no, but I cut one live salamander's head off and I was just knew I was going to do that again. And I was so sick. I was just, ugh. And I never ate another animal, like not knowingly since then. I mean, restaurants, things have snuck in. Not for years because I don't go to restaurants anymore because they are for someone like me. But yeah, right. So really more of an ethical thing, really, for me.
What about your family when you first stopped? Like me, how they just were not on board. How did that work out?
By then I was out of the house. What could they say? I was,
yeah.
I'm sure they probably thought it was stupid, but since then my sister has joined the club and whereas the ones that didn't are either dead or have a lifestyle disease.
Right. Oh, that's good. So you kind of helped your sister or you led by example?
Well, I was before her, but in her case, she had high cholesterol and it was really when she got exposed to the work of Dr. McDougall that she was able to, she didn't want to go on medication. So, and actually she ended up losing a lot of weight too. So it was a really good thing for her.
So then you ate vegan for a bunch of years. And I know that were you eating like the vegan junk food then?
Well, no, because there was no vegan junk food.
Right. No, they didn't.
I realized that there's a lot of things that are vegan that are not healthy. So French fries, to my knowledge, pretty well, actually in McDonald's, they did spray them with lard, but for the most part, French fries are vegan and soda and Coke Slurpees are vegan. And so I had a lot of my calories were coming from beverages like Coke Slurpees and regular Dr. Pepper. I would estimate probably 1,000 calories a day were coming from that. And, just whatever junk food I could find or make. I could still bake vegan desserts and things like that. So I really wasn't eating any real food like fruits or vegetables for really till my early 40s.
Right. And then, how did you learn about plant-based eating? Like me, I watched Forks Over Knives. How did that all come about for you?
Well, I think I went to culinary school, so I learned a lot there about it. the Forks Over Knives came out. I think I was already in my 50s and I was already well on my way to understanding, what is food and what isn't food. So, I didn't have the benefit of the internet to learn this. So I think going to a place called the Optimum Health Institute was very helpful, where they told us what the difference of food and non-food items are. If it grows in the ground, it's a food. If it's from a plant, it's a food. If it's manufactured in a plant, not a food. So those places help quite a bit.
Okay. So where'd you go to culinary school?
It's not there anymore. It's called Living Light Culinary Arts Institute. It was in Fort Bragg, California.
Okay.
And that was almost 20 years ago.
So I know you're a pastry chef.
Well, I haven't
You
worked.
were.
It was from 5 years, from 2007 to 2011. The restaurant I worked at called Sante closed.
So were you learning pastries that were whole food plant-based?
Well, they were whole foods, but they were very calorically dense. So I was using things like nuts and dates,
Oh, awesome.
which are healthy ingredients, but they weren't like low calorie. Let's just say.
Right. Yeah.
But I was able to learn how to do those. Yes.
That's really cool. Okay. So I thought you were just learning with all the refined sugars,
Well, when I went to culinary school, it just then is when agave first hit the scene. It was just coming out. It was expensive. Nobody knew what it was. Same thing with coconut oil. So this was 2003, and it wasn't really the way it is now, with people thinking of it as health food.
Right. Okay. So you went to culinary school and you got jobs as you were a pastry chef.
Pastry
And
chef.
So when you learned all this stuff, is that when you started to lose weight, when you learned about plant-based eating?
Not at all. I didn't start to lose weight until I was almost 52 years old. And that was because I went to the True North Health Center under the tutelage of Dr. Doug Lyle and Dr. Ellen Goldhammer, and learned about food addiction and caloric density.
That's where you learned it. Okay. So you had been eating like this for a long time, and then you learned, okay, but were you eating no oil at that time still?
So I gave up sugar first, which is interesting because sugar is a lot less calorically dense than oil, but that's what my addiction was, right? That's where I had a problem. So I was eating no oil, but believe it or not, you can still be overweight or even obese eating no oil if a lot of the percentage of your calories is coming from fat or refined grains. Refined grains meaning like bread and peanut butter, right there. That's like 2,500 calories a pound. Bread's about 1,500 calories a pound. Peanut butter is about 3,000. You average them out, that's about 2,500 calories a pound. So I was eating what I thought was like a whole food diet, eating things like peanut butter on Ezekiel bread, but for my genetics, just too calorically dense for me to be able to lose weight eating.
Okay, that's what I had for breakfast.
You don't seem to have a weight problem or struggle with weight. So again, the question is, it's not whether a food is healthy or unhealthy. Is it healthy or unhealthy for you and your genetics? Because most of weight is heritable. Like I think it's 70 or 80%. The rest is what we eat. So even if we all ate exactly the same food, we're still going to all be different shapes and sizes because of genetics. So some people, like my husband, can eat all the peanut butter sandwiches he wants and never gain an ounce. I can just sniff the jar and my scale will be up 5 pounds the next day.
Wow. Do you ever eat peanut butter, or do you avoid the nuts and everything?
No, I've avoided nuts, seeds, and avocado since I lost weight. I do eat chia seeds, and but that's about it. That's the only overt fat I get. But I eat a lot of greens. People don't believe that you can just eat a lot of things like green vegetables and get enough omega fatty acids, because there are levels that you can get checked, blood tests to do that. And so I'm not worried about it, especially because I test this every year. So no, I don't add the overt fats because I really follow calorie density to a T, and I eat what I call to the left of the red line. I eat the foods that I see that abundance without having to worry about it.
Okay, so what would you suggest I tell like our followers and our members to, if they really want to lose weight? Because I know, they might have some health issues, and would you tell them to avoid the healthy fats even, or just
not necessarily? If their goal is weight loss, I think the first thing they want to cut out for sure is the oil and the animal products. So that means the cheese, the meat, all the animal products, all the oils. I think that would be the first. I don't think everybody has to cut out nuts and seeds and avocado, especially not right away. But again, processed food is so much more calorically dense. It's at least 3 times as calorically dense as the whole food from what it came. My very first book was called Unprocessed. And I tried to make the case that human beings aren't designed to eat processed food from a can, a box, a bottle, in the bag. We're meant to eat whole food. So really, I think people need to first look at it in terms of their health, and getting rid of animal products and oils is going to be very good for their health. So let's do that first, especially the cheese. A lot of people go vegetarian, which is nice. They're not eating a lot of animals, but dairy is just as deleterious, if not more so, to your health as the other animal products. So
Yeah.
what I would say is, don't think about doing this for the rest of your life. Think about, like, it's funny, I do a daily live show on YouTube called Chef AJ Live, and the guest was Armenian, and she was saying that they go vegan for Lent, that most people can do anything for 40 days. And so, you don't have to do it for 40 days, but maybe 3 weeks, 21 days, or 30 days. Just see how you feel eating without animal products, without processed food, and see how you feel, right? And that's why I wouldn't take nuts and seeds and avocado away from people right away, because
Right.
that's going to drop their caloric density from what they're used to too low. And again, but then again, if you're somebody that can't moderate the use of it, if every time you eat cashews, you eat a pound, then
Right.
maybe cashews are a food that you maybe take away for a little bit of time, So I think any food that you overeat on might not be an ideal food for you.
Right. And can you just talk a little bit about like potatoes and carbs? Because people seem to be so afraid of potatoes and
They're afraid. It's just so funny. They're afraid of potatoes, but they're not afraid to drink vodka that potatoes are made from, right?
True.
Potatoes are probably the most slimming food you can eat. People have eaten nothing but
Yay.
potatoes for years. You can Google this KON, the KON potato study, where a couple ate nothing but potatoes for an entire year and had trouble keeping weight on. So they actually had to add oil to their diet just so they wouldn't lose too much weight. They weren't overweight to begin with, but they had no nutritional deficiencies at the end of the year.
Wow.
Spudfit Taylor, he lost 120 pounds eating nothing but potatoes. Chris Voigt, the head of the Washington Potato Commission, lost weight, reversed his lifestyle diseases, high cholesterol, high triglyceride, just by eating potatoes. Potatoes are only 1 calorie per gram. They're about 365 calories per pound. It's the company that they keep that makes them unhealthy: butter, sour cream, bacon bits, cheese, those kind of things. Carbs don't make you fat unless they're refined, like sugar, flour, and alcohol. They actually make you thin, and all the successful, healthy populations throughout the world eat most of their calories from complex carbohydrates: potatoes, rice, beans, winter squashes, which is different than refined carbohydrates, which is sugar, flour, and alcohol. So yeah,
Right.
that you think that after all these years that would be put to rest. Carbs do not make you fat. That's called de novo lipogenesis, the conversion of carbohydrate to body fat, and human beings can't do it. So fat makes you fat. Especially processed fats like oils, nuts, seeds, and avocado with their fiber and water intact are much healthier. But yeah, carbs are what we're supposed to eat, but in their whole food form and not in the processed form.
Do you eat like brown rice pasta? Like,
I don't eat any pasta. I don't eat any. My litmus test is if I can't make it very easily in my own kitchen, I don't eat it. Now I know that people can make pasta. I've never done it. The pasta I eat, I make noodles out of zucchini, or I buy the hearts of palm pasta, or I use spaghetti squash. So I use those as noodles, but I don't eat much of that anyway. So no, I don't.
But do you think of it as do you think of that as a whole food, like if it's just brown rice, or you're not eating it because of the calories?
It's better than, I just would rather just eat brown rice,
Oh, right.
So I don't think it's like a major sin for people to eat those kind of pastas, one ingredient pastas like lentils, but I'd rather just eat, again, I like to eat my food whole. So
Right.
for me, but it's a good start for other people.
Right. Like we do have this 28-day kickstart, we call it. And so I do have some of that on there, and I'm always trying to eat more like that as well. But I feel like, yeah, getting people, eating this way, that's kind of a nice, people love pasta, it seems, but then they're also afraid of it. So I'm trying to tell them it's made from a whole grain. It's made from brown rice. That's all that's in there is brown rice and water.
I think what a person can and cannot have is going to, just like I say, depend on what their goals, their objectives are, and what they can do. Because, what's that saying? Was it Voltaire who said, don't let perfect be the enemy of good? If somebody's going to say, well, if I can't have pasta, I may as well just give up. They should have pasta then, right? Not everybody has to eat as pristine as me, but if they understood my story and where I came from, they might understand that, I suffered terribly for over 50 years from being obese and having basically pre-colon cancer and all the negative things that go with being an obese female. So I found what works for me to keep my weight very stable and yet eat large portions of delicious food. So that's why I eat what I eat, but I really like what I eat, and I don't miss pasta, and I don't even like it all that much. I mean, I'd rather much have sweet potatoes. I mean,
Right.
pasta by itself doesn't taste very good. It's kind of like, I mean, it really has no taste. It's what you put on it. So why not put it on a vegetable?
Right, exactly. So tell us what you typically eat in a day, like a typical day. I'm really curious.
Yep. Well, let's see. I don't eat breakfast because I never ate breakfast, and except for Coke Slurpees or when I was younger, coffee.
Coke Slurpees.
So I've just never been hungry in the morning. I'm exercising in the morning. I'm running around, walking the dog, spinning. So I usually get hungry like around noon, between noon and 1 o'clock. And that's my largest meal, my favorite meal, because it's been the longest since I've eaten. And it's one of two things. I have two very favorite meals and I alternate them. One is it's sweet potatoes and broccoli, but it's not the orange sweet potatoes. Never much cared for those unless they were made into fries. I eat something called the Hannah yam, which in some parts of country are called white sweet potatoes or Jersey yams. They're white and creamy on the inside. They have a subtle vanilla flavor. They taste almost like eating cake. So I love to eat those with some broccoli, maybe a pound of broccoli and a pound and a half of sweet potatoes. Very filling, satisfying. And then for dinner, I have any of the hundreds of recipes you can find on my YouTube channel. Like tonight, we're having tostadas. It's made with like a Mexican rice dish, and I'll be putting, lettuce and things like that on that. But dinner varies. So while lunch is either the Hannah yam and the broccoli or Japanese sweet potatoes and chopped salad, dinner could be any soup, stew, or chili that's in any of my 4 books. Especially, I love cauliflower bisque, butternut bisque. Tostadas is our favorite meal. 3 times a week, we'll eat that.
Me too.
Last night we had stir fry, and I have a recipe for a Thai peanut tree sauce, which tastes like peanut sauce, but it's made with chestnuts, so it's lower in fat. Or let's see, what else do we have? Sometimes it's just brown rice and broccoli for dinner.
Do you season that at all, or what do you put on it? Anything or no?
So I love pico de gallo. I love pico de gallo. So that's my favorite thing to put on rice and broccoli. Or I have a brand of vinegars I love called California balsamic, and it comes in flavors like teriyaki and curry. So there's no oil or sugar or salt, but they taste like sauce. So I love to put those on grain and vegetable dishes. I love having sweet potato burgers with fries, and I make my fries in a machine called an air fryer. So I don't need any oil, and they are fantastic.
Yum. I don't use my air fryer enough. I have to start. Do they get a little crispy in there?
Oh my God, a little crispy. They get crispier than if they were fried in oil.
Whoa. Oh my gosh. Okay. I have to start using it. I bought one a while ago, and I do make a few things in there, but I know people love it. They make so many things in their air fryer. Okay. So you have your YouTube. Do you go every day? You put out a live show?
I haven't. I've done, is the time that you and I are talking, I've done 640 shows since I don't know the exact day the pandemic began, but I'm calling it March 20th, 2020, because that was the day our governor said stay at home. So yeah, I've gone live at least once a day for a year and a half now.
Wow, that is so awesome. And then I know you do like something special on Wednesdays. You do like your cooking, right?
Wednesday I do a little short episode. It's usually like a short cooking video or recipe called Weight Loss Wednesday. Those I've done about 250. So yeah, if you want more from me, you go to YouTube. There's probably over 1,000 videos now. You'll probably never get through them, even if you start right.
And then you have 3 books, right? You wrote 3 books.
I wrote 3. So the first one is Unprocessed, and I used Glenn Mercer was my co-writer on all of them. The second, The Secrets to Ultimate Weight Loss. The third book, I guess I technically didn't write, and I know I didn't write. It's called Own Your Health, but I wrote the recipes for. And then I have an ebook called A Date with Dessert that hopefully next year will be in print form. And I can
cute
to a book called Food is Climate. So yeah, I've written, I guess you could say I've written 2 books and had my hand in, I've written 3, had my hand in 2 others. And next year, my first book Unprocessed is being republished as a 10th anniversary edition. And we're adding about 30 recipes and I don't want to say we're correcting our mistakes, other than I didn't quite understand caloric density when I wrote that book. And a lot of the recipes were really high in fat. And what I did is I gave alternates or kept the original recipes, but gave some tweaks. And also we added some color photos.
Oh, awesome. That's nice. And I know you're also a speaker, but not with COVID, huh? You haven't been.
Well, it's just online. Yeah, I haven't done not really any in-person jobs. Yeah.
No. And hopefully that will be ending soon, so we can all get back to it.
Yeah.
Let's hope. Okay. Well, Chef AJ, this has been awesome. And I'm so thrilled to have you on one of our first celebrity interviews.
Thank you so much.
It's been so great. And it's so nice to meet you. And I hope you'll come back. I mean, we have big plans for our show.
Well, best of luck to you and the best of health to you and to your listeners.
Thank you. Oh, thank you. Thanks for all your wisdom. And nice to be chatting with you.
Take care.
Take care. Thanks. Well, that was fun. Thanks for listening, everybody. Check out the links in the show notes so you could find Chef AJ. And don't forget to subscribe because it really helps us to keep going here. We're having a lot of fun with this podcast and we have a lot more planned. So tune in and Phil and I will see you next week.